Andrea here, and a quick note to personally invite you to come and check out my writing circle. Over the years, my work has organically grown into a blooming community of like-hearted souls who, like you, are on a journey of discovering their writing magic. Visit www.eva-andrea.com and you find the door in the menu. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to Write Your Light, a podcast to explore and activate our soulful writer within. I'm so delighted that you are here with me. Thank you for listening to your calling. Today, you will meet Halina Goldstein, who is writer, poet, and founder of Joy Keepers Network. And she has just released her beautiful new book, Lightness of Leaving. And I'm so proud and so humbled to have this amazing writer with us today. And we will dive into her journey behind the scenes, how she wrote this masterpiece of a book, and, what we can learn from that. We will also get to know this amazing book, The Lightness of Leaving, that is about dying. It's about letting go. And I think Halina will say much more about what her message of this amazing book is. So welcome to you, Halina. And I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm so very, very grateful to be here and honored and just looking forward to our conversation and see what unfolds. So thank you.
I love that. You're so welcome, Halina. And I have to tell you something, because before we dive into everything I want to ask you about, when I received your book and sat down to read it the other day, I said to my soulmate, who was sitting nearby, if I start crying, don't worry, I'm okay. I'm just going to read Halina's book, because I knew what your writing usually do to me. And I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared for that. After the first poem, I was already sobbing. And, I couldn't put the book down. I had to read it all in one sitting. And I just got to say this right away, because it was like my heart was broken open. My mind was broken open. My awareness was just expanding as I dived deeper and deeper into this amazing poetry collection that your book is. And I felt speechless afterwards, for a long time. And I was thinking for myself, if anything can awaken us, it's a book like Halina's Lightness of Leaving. So thank you for writing it, first of all.
Oh, thank you I'm speechless, and it speaks a lot about your heart, that you experience it this way, that you are that open. I'm very, very blessed to have you read it as one of the first readers, and thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm so curious to hear about your book. But before we dive into more, I would love us to just get a direct experience right away with your writing. And I asked you to kind of fill into what you would like to share with the listeners. And I'm curious what you have chosen and why. So feel free to share with us.
So do you want me to say why first, or do you want me to read first?
You decide. You decide.
Then I start by reading.
Yes.
This piece is called Dancing. Dancing. Music is moving my body in ways I don't recognize as me. Oh, this is how I want to live. Perhaps by then, all that you will see will be some last minuscule gestures of feet, hands, breath, eyes, or not even that. So remember, I told you this while my mouth could still make words. I am not going to rest in peace. I will be dancing my way out.
Full body chills. Yeah.
So the way this piece arrived was while I was dancing. I do that almost every day at some point in the evening, just me alone dancing. And that was the experience, that the dance at this point, at this particular evening, was so free that I couldn't recognize myself. It was like it had its own life, and my body had its own life. And the thought came, this is how I want to live. and so the poem arrived from there. And the sweet thing about this is that I had the possibility to send this book to a few members of your tribe, the Magical Writers Tribe, because I really needed to know before I sent the book out, how is it to read it? And most of them, I didn't ask them like what poem do you prefer, but most of them mentioned this particular poem. So somehow this surprised me. But this is a poem people like.
I love that, and I loved it too. And it has that lightness in it, right? It's like it almost make you look forward to dying, right?
Almost.
It does actually. Yeah. It's beautiful. Oh, do you have another one you want to read to us now, or would you prefer later?
I have another one. That's a different one. Of course.
Fantastic.
Let me find it here. There it is. This one is called Lightning. Lightning. There is a tree struck by lightning. Its golden core twisted and exposed. Inside is out, or there is no outside. There is a tree and a forest and a place for me here.
Oh my God. Yes.
So that's a different experience. But this one happened while I was walking in the forest, and there was a tree struck by lightning, and its core was exposed. And it was such a strong image for me. And one reason why I wanted to share it with you here is because I always learn so much from the forest. And in the forest, life and death are coexisting in the most natural, beautiful ways. And we do not discern between which is which, because they just coexist. And it's all has its own beauty. So that's one reason. The other reason was that, and that was a little bit of a strange experience, but it happens often that when we write, we write what we write, and we think this is it. But then I experience, and I think other writers do too, that after a while, when you read what you have written, you learn from your own writing. Mm-hmm. And what I experienced on a particular day was that I was reading this poem, and I was moved by the last line of belonging, that it speaks of belonging. And this has been a theme in my life, first for many years feeling not belonging, and then feeling belonging for different reasons than I thought. So again, there was this experience in the forest, everything is belonging, and we are belonging too.
It's beautiful. I love how you share the story behind that poem, and how you're so receptive to nature. That goes, I will say, as a red thread through the whole book, how nature is a kind of invoking something in you, but your ability to bring it through is exceptional. And I also love what you said about this kind of unfolding of the meaning. It's like a Russian doll in a way, right? Layers and layers till the core. So thank you for speaking to that as well. So I would love us to. Do you have the book baby here? Can we see it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Wow. How does that feel to sit with it now in your hands?
It does feel very special. It's not the first book that I have published or written, but this one feels exceptionally special and also kind of natural. It's like, yes, here it is. So I'm very grateful for Melanie Galli, who designed the cover. She's so tuned into what my writing is about. So wonderful feeling. And the lightness to it, actually.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel the same. It has lightness and love in it, right? Oh, so much beauty. So I would love to hear, what led you to writing this book? Was there like a pivotal moment or a calling that you suddenly started feeling, or how did this come into being?
Well, there's a long story and there's a short story, and
let's take the long one today.
The very long story is that death has been a theme in my life since early childhood, because I come from a Jewish family, so there was a Holocaust story. So death was very present and like relating to it. And more recently, some maybe 8 years ago, I met Francis Bryan Scott, who later became my editor and writing mentor. She's Canadian, and we exchanged coaching at the time. And because she's been working with death and dying for many years, I was inspired to work with her on my relationship with death. At that time, there wasn't any external reason, no recent deaths, nothing coming up. I just felt it was important, and it was an amazing journey for a couple of years, just exploring my relationship with that. And then I forgot all about it, kind of. And I've been writing my poems and stories, and was getting older. Surprise, surprise. And then I always write poems, like from time to time. I write poems, not every day, but regularly, because it's my way of moving through life and getting to know life and myself. And at some point I had quite a number of them, and then I started noticing. I simply started noticing that they were about aging, and they were about relating to death as something that can happen any day. It can happen because I'm nearing 70, but it can happen any day for any of us. So again, this came up, this need to relate more conscious to it. But it was actually, the book was already in the process. The poems were already there. So I was kind of just collecting them and then giving them a form of the book. So it kind of happened by itself as a result of all that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. You have been written by life, by the whole calling in you. So I love that so much. It's like I often experience myself, and I see with other writers I'm helping, that it's like the book emerges. If we show up on the paper, it's like it just comes through us. But of course, there's a saying yes, and there's a kind of little point of surrendering to the call of writing a book. Do you remember when that happened, when you kind of said, okay, this is a book about the lightness of leaving?
I don't remember the exact moment, but I do remember that there definitely was a process. And actually, the closer I came to it becoming an actual book, the more challenging it became, because I was leaving the space of just my own writing and sharing it with someone who knows me better than anyone else on earth, to like facing the fact that I was actually intending to share it with others. So that was a challenge. But here we are.
Yeah, speak more to that. I'd love to hear that, because I know every book has a journey, and it's like a little hero's journey.
Yeah.
we go on, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of vulnerabilities or challenges did you meet in the process?
Yeah, so there are layers of it, and one layer of it is that partly because part of it is because of the theme itself. We live in a culture where death is being hidden uh, as much as possible, which of course is impossible. But it's not a natural part of our culture. It's not a natural part of our conversation. So it is still a taboo. And there is a lot of fear about it. And most people do not have a conscious relationship with death and dying, even if it's part of life for absolutely each and every one of us. So that was one awareness, like, I'm speaking to a taboo here. The other part was that because the writing is about, at least some of the writing is about states that are impossible to express in words, and also, yes, vulnerable and delicate by in its own nature. There was it wasn't really a feeling of, showing my vulnerability, but it was the question. It was a big question to me: does it even make sense to anyone to read any of it? And again, my editor, she understood all of it, but she has known me for years, so I couldn't take it as a reassurance at all, because even if, I mean, she's a reader and a writer, but I that wasn't enough. So I was still like, would it make sense to anyone? And then I had the great joy, pleasure, and luck to be part of your writers tribe, because with your permission, I reached out and asked if some people would read the book, and that was like, okay, that was before the book was published. I was like, okay, this is the only thing I can do. And after a little while, I started getting responses, and very positive responses, actually. And the biggest, like the most important response from you was, and that would have been enough, was that it did speak to them, it did resonate, that they could mirror themselves in it, and that was a huge relief. That made all the difference. And then that was the end of the challenge. From there, it has been easy so far. It's like, okay, some people can read it, it speaks to them, all is well.
I love that. Yeah, that is a writer's wildest dream, right? And
Yes, yes.
and thank you for trusting your inner guidance to write and kind of bring this book together, even if you met that doubt, as we all do when we when we follow our inner guidance. So we can be challenged beyond because we go into landscapes we have never gone to before.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I feel and see how you've done that, and what a legacy you have brought to life from doing that. But there's something about having these believing mirrors and having these kind of readers you can trust to reflect your writing in. So beautiful to hear that. Yeah. And of course, also I see what you say with the taboo and the courage it takes to write about something where you also, in a way, have to navigate your readers' vulnerabilities, right? Because you might have come to this peace and freedom in the connection with death, but what about the reader, right? And when do you push it too much? But I feel you found this beautiful balance, just gotta say that, and that it's so what really struck me when I read the book was how how truly lighthearted it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to share this because when I was a young woman, around my 23, I had a big breakdown, like a deep depression and stress breakdown. And I met a deep fear of death. I was so afraid of anything that had to do with dying and death that I didn't even go to my own grandmother's funeral. I can feel the sorrow of that now. But I was so hit by that existential angst of dying, and anything that reminded me slightly of my mortality gave me panic attacks. So I had to stay away for my own sake in order to start that journey of making peace with my own mortality. Uh, and what I was thinking, because I know, and now it's a whole other story, because I have been on this spiritual journey, and I've come to to know my essence, and that there's nothing to fear. So my relationship has also totally transformed to death. But I felt like if I was a reader, meeting my own fear of my mortality, this book would be medicine. It would be elixir for my soul. So I just wanted to share that with anyone who feel that anxiety around death, because it is a big universal topic.
Oh, thank you, Eva. And thank you for sharing the story, because there's so many people feeling the same way. And thank you for showing them that they're not alone. And I am hoping that this book will help them take a step in the direction of feeling more at peace and trusting more.
I'm even thinking, if you know someone who's facing dying, if you have, family, friends who are meeting their fears, this would be the most beautiful gift to give this book. That's my feeling. So, what do you feel is the key message, or maybe the feeling you want to give the readers with this book, if you could speak to that?
Well, we kind of already spoke about it, right? It's kind of difficult to speak about, in the sense that I know, and I find it immensely beautiful, that when I write for myself. It's a selfish thing. It's me trying to understand my own life and my own death and myself. This is why I write. Then I realize I'm probably not the only one. So I share it with others. But I don't have, in that moment, an intention to provide a message, or I just hope it will do something for them. And I know the same happens for readers. They're not interested in reading about my experiences. They're interested in reading about themselves. They're interested in mirroring themselves. So I hope and trust, this is the most important thing, that everyone who reads this book will find in it what they need to find in that moment. That being said, my sense is that it is a profoundly spiritual book, and there is a healing happening during the reading, as it's been happening during the writing. This is the feeling I have. And other than that, again, I hope that it will help the readers to meet that taboo subject, which is, again, in nature, the most natural in the world, with openness, just openness, and see what good can come out of it, because some good will come out of it. And I've heard a wonderful interview with a Buddhist nun a little while ago, who has spent much of her life working in a hospice, and what she learned from there was that what she helped people relate to death, but the most important part was that they learned to relate to life through it. And this is what I hear again and again. It's really by relating to our mortality, we relate to our life, and it makes our life so much richer, and we become more present to it. So that is the real gift here.
Wow. Thank you. Love that. So true. And maybe you have already kind of answered these questions, because I was thinking, did anything change in your own relationship to dying when writing this book? Or did something maybe become more clear to you? I'm curious.
Yeah, the thing with working with death is that because we're working with something that is so deep and also so deeply unconscious, it keeps being a surprise. And for example, at some point, and I was kind of, I've been working deeply with this. I'm totally surrendering to it when it comes. I love my life. I hope it will last for as much, as long as possible, as long as it's meant to. But still, but the funny thing was that while I was writing the poems, and poems never lie, even if they're metaphoric, I noticed quite a bit of a resistance. So that was really interesting. And so the book actually, and one of the first readers also notices that the book is actually a dance between yes and no, between no, I want to stay here, and yes, I'm ready to go. No, I want to stay, yes, I'm ready to go. And I think that's the natural thing. So that was one revelation for me, how much I was in this. The other, however, was that a sense of, I feel the word confident comes actually to mind. I feel more confident than ever. As I am confident in life taking good care of me, I am more confident than ever of death taking good care of me. And that's somehow happened during, I feel I've, through writing this, I have taken another round of the journey, and have been open to release more of this resistance, and feel more intimate with death as the transition into something wonderful.
The transition into the ocean, as you talked so beautifully about.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Also, because death is but a portal, right, into another beingness. That's such a comfort and so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So this podcast is also for writers who are feeling a calling to write and share their voice. And what would you say to a writer sitting here, maybe an aspiring writer who are feeling called to write? What would be your advice? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox. It's kind of tricky because on the one hand, showing up for the writing is so important, and I know that you help writers with that, and it's so important to simply show up for the writing. And at the same time, there is the opposite, in the sense that our best work, I feel, comes when we really engage in the experience behind the writing. So just to use an example, if I hardly ever sit down to write a poem, like now I will write poetry, let's see what comes. I don't do that. I do that with stories actually, but I don't do that with poetry. But what happens is that when I'm nature like excessively every day. Metaphors come, or pictures come, or I notice something, or the other way around, I notice something happening within me. And the most important part of the writing is to stay with that experience and not try to write about it. So that we really connect with it as deeply as we can. And when we have done that, then we can start writing about it. That's at least one way of working. And I'm only saying it because when we are aspiring writers, there's part of us that wants to be on the other side of writing. We're sometimes a little bit in too much of a hurry, like, oh, I need to write something, I need to write something, but it starts within. So like take the right pace for you for every stage. And then when it's written, then it's time for editing and developing. But it's so important to really listen in. Is it this time to experience? Is it time to write? Is it time to edit, and go with that?
Yeah, amen. I feel you deeply, and I couldn't agree more. That deep listening and receptivity and availability comes first. And of course, the showing up is maybe more about some flow writing, some morning pages, stuff that keeps you kind of connected to the stream. For me, at least, but I feel also with poetry or stories, for that sake, the listening part is coming first. And it makes me think of something from the master teacher, Jesus, who said, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be given to you." And there's something about seek the connection with being, with the oneness, and everything else, the words will be given to you.
Yeah, that is so true. And I'm even reminded that I never look for metaphors. I don't like, now is the state, how can I express a metaphor? When I'm in that state that you just described, then life becomes a metaphor, and I believe it happens for others in similar ways. Like when we're really open, then life starts showing like this, and you see a picture, you see a tree that's been struck by lightning, and something arises. You dance, and something arises, or something else that happens in your life, but you don't look for it. You just open yourself to it. It's a difference.
This is so good. I just want to stop for a minute and just feel the truth of what you just said here. I think if anyone could take something with them about their writing journey, take this. This was profound. So, Halina, can we hear another piece? Do you have something else to read for us?
Yeah, I have many. I have one.
Must have been hard to pick.
Yeah, it has been hard to pick. Also because it is actually, unlike the other poetry the collection has, this is a journey. It's an actual journey from beginning to end. There are 5 seasons, so it's difficult to kind of take it out of context. But here we are. This one is called Island Talk. You are a home that has found its place. The ocean is holding you. You are holding the power of earth. I was a lost boat, longing for harbor. I found you. But now you say, my real home is waiting for me. Not on the land with you, but in the making of waves. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy.
Hey. What a high note. Thank you.
Thank you.
What made you write this poem?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. But I think there was an image of an island, simply. It might have been the very special tiny islands that I saw when I was in Japan recently, like volcanic kind of, they look like black cliffs rising from the ocean. But sometimes it just, it just happens, and a story unfolds, and And this was, by the way, one of the few poems where I really had to wrestle and find the balance that you talked about before, so that it is an invitation without being too harsh, an invitation to let go without being too harsh. And I hoped I succeeded, but it took a little bit of work, this one.
You can imagine. You found it. Totally. So, Halina, I can imagine that anyone listening to this will sit and think, where can I get this beauty in my hands? Where can I get the book? Tell us more about that.
So the book is on Amazon. It's that simple. I self-publish on Amazon, and it should be in all Amazon markets, regardless of where you are in the world. And there's a paperback and there's a Kindle, whichever you prefer. So it's easy.
Awesome. I'll put the links below here for where I can, at least. I'll put the links. And if not, you search on Halina Goldstein, Lightness of Living, right? And it will pop up. Give yourself this gift, I will say, and give it to your friends, give it to your family, give it to anyone who you feel would, take it to heart. It's a precious pearl. And yes, I think you understand how much I love this book. And I've seen a lot of poetry. I'm a poetry lover and a poetry writer myself. And this is sublime. Also, not only, as I said to Halina earlier, it's not only the energy and the light and the love that flows through and between the lines, but it's also beautifully crafted. And she's a master. So before we wrap up for today, Halina, I want to ask some weird questions, some crazy
weird questions.
Gotta go a little weird here. Huh?
Let's have some weird.
Are you ready for it?
We'll see. I think I am.
If you could ask a death a question, what would that be?
That is a good question, because there's the personal and the next and the next and the next. But at the end of the day, since we're here in this conversation, I would ask that how can we get to know you better, and how can we learn to fear you less?
Yes.
Please answer.
Read Halina's book, it would say.
That's one of the many options. Yes.
Yeah, good. So, next question. What spiritual truth makes you laugh?
That's also a weird question, because it kind of depends, right? How you understand it. So I'm going to interpret it in my own way, because just as I hear it, it could be, all the funny things we say that we think is a spiritual truth, and then it becomes something else. But actually, I have an experience regularly, maybe even daily, where all of a sudden I'm completely like blank. There's not a thought in my head. There is nothing special happening. I might be just on my way from one room to another, and I start to smile, and then sometimes I laugh. And I would say that something behind that laughter is a deep spiritual truth. But it has no words, it has no explanation. There's nothing there. It just makes me laugh happily.
I love that. You're Buddha. You're in a Buddha.
It must be that. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So, are you ready for the last question?
I'm getting nervous now, but yeah, okay.
Who were you before you were born, Halina?
Yeah. Like with the other questions, this can be interpreted in many ways, and I choose my own way. So, because I could start saying something about, I remember I have some memories from some previous lives, and da, 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 da. But that's not what I want to share. I have a memory, a very distinct memory of when I was a few months old. And that was before I had language. And I was just lying there, and I was like, I cannot even say one with joy. I was joy, I was love. Wherever I looked, everything was joy, everything was love. Whoever was there, everything was joy, everything was love. And I know that this was not something that was given to me by external circumstances, because that's just not possible. So I'm thinking that since I felt that as a baby, this is who I was before I was born. And I know for sure that if this is who I was before I was born, this is also who we all were before we were born. And this is also who we still are, except we forget it or we hide it and we play different games as we're meant to in our lives. But this is who we are. Pure joy, pure love, pure unity.
Gorgeous. I love it. And that's probably also who will be on the other side of the portal.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Eva. I think so.
I think so too. Thank you, Halina. You are embodying that love and that light and that wisdom. And thank you so much for this conversation. I have loved everything about hanging out with you today and just savoring your book. And I wish and send so many blessings with your new book into the world. I know it will touch hearts all over the world, and it will, do what it came for. And thank you to you. I appreciate you deeply, and I love you. And I feel stronger. I feel more open. I feel safer walking this path alongside you. So thank you, my love. And thank you for today. Thank you so much for being here with us. And if you want to have a meeting with your divine muse, go to my page www.eva-andrea.com for a guided writing meditation loved by thousands over the years. Thank you for listening, everyone. Share this episode with your friends and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. So much love.